Congratulations.
Congratulations. Like, comment, subscribe. I'm going to
smash like.
That right there is now our advertisement. I'm just cut out the like, comment, subscribe. It's just gonna be that.
Dab on that bell.
Dab on that bell.
Welcome back to HEETwave. Today we're going to talk about a new segment that I want to have a recurrent segment on. It's generational gaming divides. And the one thing that I want to talk about today is generational gaming divide that is caused by 2D versus 3D gaming. Specifically, the transition from 16-bit to 32-bit and 64-bit.
Okay, use more words about that.
So, for all of gaming for a long time period was 2D, and that's all gaming was, and there's very little 3D gaming out there, and the primary source of that was 2D.
Yeah.
I'm one of those people. I think most of us were old enough to grow up with 2D gaming.
Yeah.
Brittany's a very particular situation.
Barely was growing up with.
But as I've gotten older, and some of these people that I have gotten to know and befriend, they started gaming with the N64 or they started gaming with the PS2, and they just have never played 2D games.
Well, and there are other people too, because we know people who are of the age generation where the N64 should have been their first system. But have become speedrunners or people who play 2D games out of some sort of nostalgia.
Yeah, a nostalgia that wasn't theirs. Not to say that it couldn't have been, but just like, for example, Brittany, you wanted to buy.
So my situation was that I had people in my life who had video games, and I would play like their consoles.
Yeah.
So I had like my toes dipped into like the 2D gaming.
Yeah.
But when I wanted my very own console, I wanted the N64. But my family couldn't afford the N64 like when it was out. So my mom bought me a SNES for Christmas that year. So we were basically like a generation behind.
Yeah.
So I grew up playing I had like 8 games for the SNES. So like Lion King, Aladdin, Jungle Book, Scooby Doo, All Real Monsters, Timon and Pumbaa Jungle Games, and Killer Instinct were the games that I had. Those were the games that I had.
That's the one outlier.
That's like a lineup though.
It's Killer Instinct. Only reason I had that was because it literally came with a SNES when I bought it.
Oh, okay.
Like it was like a bundle pack or whatever. I guess I don't know why my
you got
mom
the soundtrack
was
and everything.
Yeah, it came with the soundtrack and everything.
Love that soundtrack.
That is what I had growing up. But then I immediately moved over to the N64. So most of my gaming growing up was 3D, except for those few games that I played on the SNES. But because of that, I struggle with any 2D games. Like I'm not very good at them.
Yeah.
I get fed up with them very quickly, and I'll put them down, except for those few that I played. But 3D games, I give them more of a chance. And I struggle with them, I'll keep at it. But for some reason, 2D games, I'm like, whatever. I'll just stop playing it.
Yeah, so. I think I'm kind of closer to you. Like, I don't hate 2D games, but I think part of why I didn't why I don't like platformers is that I don't feel the same, like, understanding of space in a 2D platformer.
Yeah, and that's something that me and you have actually had a lot of conversations about, which is strange. I actually sometimes don't. I give you in my head you're older than you are.
Yeah.
So I always forget like your actual age range, and you're closer to Brittany in that age range. Whereas me and Hutch, we're pretty close in age, and we grew up with 2D.
Right.
And so we have a big, strong nostalgia for those titles. We're both big Sonic the Hedgehog fans.
Yeah.
And more so like. You actually grew up with Nintendo. I just almost purely Sega.
I remember the day that we bought our Nintendo with the Mario and Duck Hunt cart from Sears at Haynes Mall. I remember it vividly.
It's a good day.
It was a great day.
I got my Mario and Duck Hunt pack for Christmas of the year of 1990.
Oh wowie!
So.
Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis. Hutch never thought his life would end up like this.
But no, what I've seen though is that while speedrunners aside,
Yeah.
there's a lot of people who just don't even consider 2D games an option. Like as an for example, we have good friends Tanner and Caleb. Hey, I know Tanner, you're probably watching this episode. He
Fuck off.
they don't care for 2D games.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like at all. They'll be like, oh yeah, they'll play a stage and be like, that was fun, and then they'll go and play a 3D game and spend like hundreds of hours inside of it.
I will say too that like the difference for me in like a 3D and a 2D game is that a 2D game is very constricting. Like I can only go this one path. But so the first 3D games I played were like Mario 64 and Donkey Kong 64, and those are very
feels like freedom.
Yeah, so I could go wherever I wanted to.
Yeah.
And there were certain paths you had to take, but you could wander around the overworld and stuff, and it felt very free. And so going back to those 3D games, I can play like an older 3D game now because it's like, okay, this section is really hard. I want to do it later. I want to come back to it. Versus the 2D game where it's like, this section is fucking killer and you have to do it now or you're not going to progress in the game.
I get that. So there's some games though that were 2D games that were more like 3D games. For example, like the Metroid and Castlevania franchises. There's a lot of exploration involved, so you could do something along those lines. That being said, that type of game didn't really explode until after 3D gaming.
Right.
There was
and you
like
got the 3D open world and it was just
so
whatever.
And you're comparing the two, you're like, well, I could just go anywhere in this game. So I kind of get where you're coming from there. It's hard. I understand your perspective, but for me it just feels like I never felt that way in a 2D game. I never felt constricted.
Well,
but I see how you would.
This is just my personal
preference I agree with
where
you.
I'm coming from.
I just it's a new perspective for me to kind of like for me to take in because I've never felt that way in a 2D game. I've never felt restricted. I've always felt like I had this whole world to explore, especially with like Sonic games. Sonic games have like a top, a middle, and a bottom, and a route usually in their stages. And to me, I was like, well, that's the exploration. But I can kind of see where you're coming from. Like, oh, I can go anywhere. Feels like going like it does in real life.
Yeah. And for me, I guess it's just more of like, hey, my skill level is not quite there yet. Like I need more practice in this area. So for now, I can just skip that part and come back to it.
Yeah,
versus like in a 2D game where it's like, no, you got to figure it out right now, or you're not gonna get anything. So.
That's fair.
I realize though that I have quicker drop off with open world games. Like frequently, when I'll play an open world 3D game, I'll just get to a point and be like, I don't care about anything enough to figure out what's next. Or, you know, there's so many options in front of me. And, like, fucking whatever.
So I get that with, like, newer open world games where there's so many options that I'm, like, overwhelmed and I don't care. That was my issue with, like, Skyrim.
Destiny 2 is really bad about that right now. Like, if you're a new player, even if you're like me and you come back after you've played, like, midway, you have no idea what the fuck your next objective is. Because there's, like, it shows you all the expansion, like, you know, possibilities. And I'm just like, I don't know where to start.
I'm currently that way right now with like Fortnite. I stopped playing for like 5 months, and at the map is completely different now, and all kinds of other stuff.
And there are new mechanics that because like
it's a different game now.
Yeah.
I was thinking about this when I was playing a mobile game a few days ago, and I realized that it was a mobile game that's been around for a while. So they've had to do the thing where they're continuously releasing content to keep people hooked, to keep people engaged, and all that sort of stuff.
Subscription-based gameplay.
But so you have no fucking clue. Like, there are 35 mechanics, and you haven't experienced, like, the gradual addition of those mechanics. So you don't know what any of those fucking things do. You don't know how it works or why it does that or any of that.
So that is, I think, that isn't more of a association to our time period than it is between like 2D and 3D, because there are 2D games that are like that now on mobile and 3D games that are like that. But I get like, I think that affects gaming in general, whereas like this generational gap that I'm talking about is more of a old fogies, and this is something I think about. It's like, let's say VR is the next 3D. Okay. There was 2D, there's 3D, now VR. Will VR be the new like thing that eventually takes over and people who are old fogies still play those 3D games on a flat screen TV.
So I think that with the explosion of indie game developers, like a lot of them are building 2D games again.
Yeah.
So I don't think,
and those are very popular now.
Yeah.
Again.
I don't think VR is going to kill 3D, just like I don't think 3D killed 2D.
Yeah.
Like those are all ways to do things.
Well, no.
And I think we're adding more tools that we can use to tell a story.
Agreed. I'm less worried about the market aspect than I am on the effect on people.
Oh, okay.
So, for example, I know 2D still exists because there's old people like us that still exist that want to play those games.
Mm-hmm.
The market is there.
Yeah.
What I mean more is like people who are born now and VR has always been available to them.
Yeah.
Will they feel differently when they grow up? Like, why even bother with this fucking flat screen TV when I can have a Oculus Quest Plus 5 or whatever
just on your face
and be able to do things?
Well, I'm not sure about the VR, but I can say that, like, I have siblings. My sister, who is the oldest, she was born in 2002.
Yeah.
And then my brother was born in 2005. And they do not have any interest in 2D games.
I've only ever seen them play one 2D game, and that was Stardew Valley.
Yeah. And then that is kind of a different type of 2D game because it's still kind of an open.
Yeah.
And so they don't have any interest in 2D games.
So I have a weird holdup with specifically 2D RPG. Because when I started playing RPGs, I started with Final Fantasy VII. And that is very much a 3D game. And I think I have a weird holdup on how stories are presented in 2D versus 3D. Because 3D, obviously you can do more and make these characters more in different environment. It feels more impactful than, say, like a sprite being, tossed around.
Yeah. No, there's no fucking
just pick up the exact same sprite, rotate it 45 degrees, shift it back and forth, and put it down.
Yeah. Well, no, like from Final Fantasy 6 to Final Fantasy 7 was a huge fucking jump. There was legitimately a man who picks up a train and fucking like suplexes it in Final Fantasy 6, and in 7 it's way more realistic. Not realistic, but way more realistic.
The suplexes are so much more impactful.
That there is more emotional impact to a 3D game versus a 2D game.
Yeah, I feel
I think in most cases I can see that.
Yeah. And I played Final Fantasy 6. Like, I got to the train, not quite to the suplex the train part, but unfortunately,
that's the best part.
I know. Yeah. I don't know. It's just a weird thing with me. I definitely want to go back and revisit those games and try and
It's sometimes hard to go back to 2D games.
Yeah.
It's depending on like not just like the fact that it's 2D, but like there's some outdated mechanics and some like a life convenience mechanics that are hard.
Well, and I don't think it's just as neat of a bucket as 2D games versus 3D games. 'Cause I think there are some 2D games that were made in the early days that are still perfectly valid, perfectly enjoyable games.
Like Super Metroid, in my opinion, is a perfect game.
Yeah, and we know lots of people who believe that all of the Mega Mans are that.
Yeah,
and
they're not, but yes, there's people that feel that way.
But those, I think it comes down to the relationship between the game and whether or not it's a game that you can build a relationship with.
Yeah.
I really liked GoldenEye, but going back and playing GoldenEye, it's fucking rough.
Early 3D is hard.
Yeah.
Early 3D is especially hard.
Early 3D, and part of us remembers the pain and enjoys it because of that. But, really you could ask, do you want to play a twin stick first person shooter or do you want to play a single stick first person? It's a similar question.
Yeah.
Like they're worlds apart. And
it's a big, huge difference.
Yeah.
Like for me, I didn't enjoy first person shooters until twin stick shooters.
Yeah.
Like I tried.
Yeah, it's like that weird gap where it's becoming that weird half, like where it's half 2D, half 3D.
Yeah.
And the perspectives are all fucked up.
Yeah.
Like what comes to mind for me is the original Crash Bandicoot.
Yeah.
That was like a half 3D, half 2D game.
Right.
And some of the 3D stuff, like the perspective is all fucked up. Like stuff looks further than it is. Like you think like I'm gonna jump and I'm not gonna make it. And then you do, and it's like, oh, this kind of makes me sick.
And Crash had weird perspectives, partly to cover up the console's limitations of 3D hardware. Because it was the first time they did shit.
Yeah.
That's why Crash 2, in a lot of people's minds, is a better game because they learned how to make games for that console.
Yeah.
So perspective wise, it was a lot easier. But I know you particularly have.
And even when they did the remaster of it, they tried to fix it, but there's still some weird shit going on with it, and the hitbox is a little different than the original. And I think like the reason why everyone says the new one is so much harder is because they never played the original, so that it is a harder game. Like that's Crash Bandicoot's a fucking hard game. And B, if you were used to the original, the hitbox is slightly different. So if you're playing it like you used to, you're not gonna make your jump.
So it makes literally no one happy.
Yeah, well, actually, I've been playing the crap out of it. I'm trying to 100% it, get all the gems.
Yeah,
and it's probably one of my favorite like remaster games.
They did a good job with it.
Yeah, I think they did a really good job.
But it was like the Dark Souls of 2D of 3D
I don't agree
platform.
with that.
I don't think so, but a lot of people were saying that.
I don't agree with that because I think that the newer version is easier than the old version because they give you a lot of leeway. The old one, like in order to get a gem, you had to hit all of the boxes and you couldn't die. Now they have it to where if you're getting just the white gem, which is the common one, you can die as long as you get all the boxes. Like if you hit the checkpoint, it saves all the boxes you hit before. The old one, you couldn't do that. You had to get every single one perfect. And they do that with the colored gems, which are the harder ones. Now you do have to go through like the original, but there's a lot of shit. And then they cheesed a bunch of stuff too where you're fighting bosses. You can stand on ledges out of the boss's reach. Where in the original game, like there was no place to cheese it. You couldn't stand on this little ledge. So I disagree. I think the new one is easier.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I think part of what it comes down to is like the design heuristics of modern gameplay.
Yeah.
Games are supposed to feel a certain way. You know, you're supposed to have a specific interaction model. And your brother and sister, it might be that they don't like Mario because when you press right, it feels weird or like sluggish or something, or like the longer you hold down the button, the higher you jump.
Well, that was the case with Majora's Mask. Like, or not Majora's Mask. What was the one where they were like, you have to run?
It was Majora's
Okay,
Mask.
yeah. So like,
my brother was like not pushing on the joy because he was playing on the N64,
right?
And he's not used to holding the N64 controller, and he wasn't pushing down on the joystick hard enough.
Yeah.
And it was making Link.
Is this another time to show the picture of him holding it bad?
Yeah.
So he was like not pushing it down. So, you know, like in the original Zelda, Link like jumps automatically if you get near a ledge if you're going fast enough. But because he wasn't going fast enough, Link would just kind of like fall off the ledge or would just like do that thing where he'd fall and grab on instead of doing a jump. And I'm like, you need to push harder on the controller.
Right.
Like you're not going to break it. Just push on it really hard.
Right.
And my brother was like, I hate this.
So that was a fun time.
Yeah.
I do think there is a generational gap between these two.
Yeah.
But and of course it's a blurry line. There's not like a this is when it happened. Although I think it has
fucking
the most
video game millennials.
Yeah, I think it does have the most definitive line because 2D and 3D was a generation. Like Super Nintendo, Genesis, and then PlayStation, N64, and Saturn were 2D then 3D consoles.
Well, I think there's kind of another one, which is the moment that the world shifts from entirely different shaped controllers to the Xbox, PlayStation controllers, which are
kind of staying in the same
general
design.
They're differently shaped to within small margin. Yeah, their ergonomics are different.
Yeah,
but it's still 4 button in like a little diamond.
And then Nintendo's like,
2 on the back.
Hey, what if you have 2 sticks in your hand?
Yeah.
Whoa.
Good old Nintendo always fucking things up in the best way possible.
What if you made a fucking piano out of a cardboard box? And it cost you $60.
Thanks, Jim Tendo.
Sign me up.
Oh man, I legitimately am so glad that Nintendo exists because of shit like that.
Nintendo's just like, fuck you guys.
Well, because it's like the other companies are just trying to distill everything down to the most profitable format. And Nintendo's like, hey, let's make a DIY cardboard kit for punching robots. Let's see if that works. People bought it, huh?
And like,
Weird.
And they're like, oh, here's a fucking hula hoop, and in order to move in the game, you have to run in place. Fatty and Joy.
By the way, you can't find that anywhere.
It is hard to find. It's
Really?
on Amazon though.
No, it's not.
Oh, did it sell out recently?
Yeah.
So it's in my cart.
there are. Well, it's probably sitting there for like $120. Apparently, the Target next to my house has like 3 in stock, so I'm gonna pick one up when I swing by there.
Pick up 2 and I'll pay you back.
Pick up all 3 and sell them on for
I mean,
profit.
you're not
For
wrong.
profit.
She's not wrong.
Sell it on eBay for a gajillion dollars.
Well, and with that,
All right.
We've got a heist, we've got a grift, and we've got a Gymtendo.
we'll see you next week when we're $120 more rich.
Hasta Luigi.
Bye-bye.
Bye.